everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Relative Pitch. We are so excited for y'all to be here, and we're so excited for today's guest. Please help me welcome Mr. Kenrick Wagner. He is the Director of Contemporary Commercial Music at the University of South Florida. He is amazing, so everybody give your hand claps to Mr. Wagner. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. So
Really
first,
important question
oh
first.
yeah.
Actually, sorry. How often is like do you get Wagner? The question of like your last name being Wagner. I just thought about that.
I think the last time that I was that they used that as a pun for my name was when I was playing concert band back in like middle school. I was a saxophonist, and yeah, they used to drop that.
Yeah.
Now I get Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, okay.
The D is silent though. The D is silent though.
Oh, Lord have mercy. So tell us, I mean, I did not know you were a saxophone player. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I was born in LA, grew up in Queens, New York. And I got involved in music when I entered middle school. At first, I was like a visual artist. I love to draw. That was my thing. When I went to the not after school, when I got into middle school, which was the Leonardo da Vinci School in Corona, Queens, they had three programs to offer. So there was chorus, there was visual arts, and there was band. Right. So of course I'm like, all right, cool. I want to get into visual arts. I'm a good drawer. You're a kid, you're like, I could draw stomach muscles. I could draw. But that program was all full. And then I said, all right, I'm gonna take my shot at chorus. That program was full.
Uh-oh.
So they was like, well, your special is going to be band. So when I went into band, I picked up an alto saxophone. And then I danced between alto, tenor, and baritone. I think my last was a baritone. And my thing was I was always fascinated by like Charlie Parker. I started to kind of identify myself with the cutting edge people that artists pay homage to. So started playing a lot of that. I ended up going into like the second most decorated high school for music, which is Bayside High School, and played in their band. What I found when I was playing it was I kind of was in we didn't have much of a jazz band. So we was in concert band, and then, jazz band was kind of like, oh, well, if you want to come first period, which first period was like an hour before school started, and you could only, study in jazz band for like 45 minutes. It wasn't like a full period, like 40, 45 minutes. But, my thing was jazz. Fortunately, I kind of discovered that I was going to pivot and shift into, hip hop and production. It was really because of my conductors. I got kind of fatigued with just playing a lot of this old, I guess you want to say, Western European music, Vivaldi and so on and so forth. And I was just like always fascinated with trying to play samples that were used in hip hop. So I used to play like Pete Rock. And that little 5 minutes before band starts where everybody just goes off crazy in their chair and thing. I would go and I'd go straight to like trying to play Pete Rock. And then I figured, I was like, I love my instrument, but, I do see myself more into, gravitating more towards the, popular music and what I could do for that. So fast forward out of high school, didn't go to college right away, was working, single parent home, the whole struggle thing. And, I think the biggest shift in my life happened was when my sister passed away. So I was 20 years old. My sister was 23. She had a panic attack that led to a brain aneurysm that led to a heart failure. And this happened within about a week's time. And when that happened, it was very hard for me. So like, it's kind of like time stopped. And in my mind, I was like, I need to see the world beyond Queens. Like I needed to see that there's more to this world. So my only outlet to do that was to apply to work at a summer camp that was in upstate New York. So I was like, all right, cool. Let me just at least get away. And my mom was cool with it. So it was from that moment that I knew that I would be involved with youth development for the entirety of my life. The moment I stepped onto a campground and just saw all of these kids coming from all of these different neighborhoods, Black and brown, from the Bronx, Uptown, Brooklyn. I mean, I guess respectfully, we all know the vibes of where we live and where that's from and what that brings.
Yeah.
But that pretty much, that kind of like pivoted my life. So I was like, youth development is something that I know I'm going to do. So from there, I went into working in after-school programs, directing after-school programs, management, training. And then the big music shifts, the music came back into my life when I worked for an organization called Little Kids Rock. So Little Kids Rock is an organization that kind of champions popular music for young people. And I was hired as the hip hop curriculum specialist or modern band content specialist. So I got to test my pen a little bit on how I could like write and develop programs and stuff. And it got taken to very well. Started to go from state to state, teaching a lot of grad students and teachers and music ed people about how you can kind of incorporate a lot of the concepts of hip hop to make a more inclusive classroom culture. It's not just about the music, it's the culture, it's the relevance, it's the concepts that you can teach around. Even if you're teaching concert band, you can use some of these elements and pedagogies to be successful and more relevant in your classroom. So from there, I was there for 2 years. Decided after 2 years that as much as I loved everything that I was doing there, that it just didn't seem that everything about the organization reflected my personal mission as far as like engaging youth and teaching the youth. And there's things that I feel strongly about. We could get into that a little bit later, but I knew that there was going to be a shift. So what I did was I left the organization. Long story short, I started an organization or a company called Project Gametime. And what we would do is we would do trainings for staff, but we was also doing hip hop education as well. I started what's called a rap academy. I would go to high schools. I would teach kids how to, and I wouldn't really even teach. I like to call myself a coach because I feel like it's more, my role is more to draw out what they already have within them and inspire them and ask them the right questions that helps them solve their own issues. I want to inspire to think and shift culture by like using your own talent. So I did some rap academy stuff in Newark, New Jersey. It was very successful until the pandemic hit and everybody's funding went right. But it was fine. We were still, Project Gametime, which is still active today, we still were doing a lot of great stuff. And then I got a random email. From a dean at USF that said, I spoke to such and such and said that, told me that anything you want to do, hip hop and groundbreaking, this is the guy, he's the guy. And I got invited for an interview and the rest was history.
Like, first of all, just growing up, because we were all in band as well, and that was the thing that always kind of struck me, was that it always seemed there was a disconnect between the music that I listened to, that I grew up on, that, we sit in the backseat of our parents' car on a way to something, we hear hip hop, we hear R&B, but then when we go into a classroom, where is that music, represented? Even when they would play popular tunes, they would never play our popular music. Right. So I totally feel you on that. And I'm just glad that you have really been that change to bring it to, because there's a lot of teachers, and I would like to be in that class too, to really learn how to really, change the culture of a band room, because it is what all of our kids are listening to nowadays. So we have to embrace that culture there. I do have a question for you. Can you just talk about the importance of after school culture? I think we don't talk about after school programs like that, and it really had an influence on you. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, we can just go from a standpoint of what's happening, what happens to youth between the hours of 3 and 6, like when they're getting out of school, and how I'm not sure about across the nation, but I'm pretty sure in New York, DC and New Jersey, those are like peak hours for crime amongst teens and younger adults. So number one, it's a safe space. And there's something special about the uh, the idea that like after school is a place where you can learn, but you're also in a space that's not so intense. Your learning is a little more, it's fun. And, there's ways that, people, I don't get caught up in a lot of language that people use, but at the end of the day, it's a safe place for people to kind of just build positive relationships and learn while having fun. And it's not an intentional, like, we're going to mask this so that you don't believe it. It's just, no, we're just going to create this space that would allow you to be you. And I think that after school culture is necessary because it balances school culture. When you have school is very intense, it's about numbers, it's about, state exams, it's about the pressure of being able to make certain, benchmarks and so on and so forth. And after school is a place where you're not so much, as a young person, you're not so much worried about that. And I think after school culture is important because it's a community within a community. It's a place where student A may build a relationship with student B that they've never had during the school time. So there's something that's special about looking forward to that relationship and looking forward to that confidence. And after school, also, when you think about from a hiring standpoint, it's my personal opinion, but I feel like when you go to kind of hiring staff for after school programs, you're looking for the closest people to the youth, like our staff mentors and group leaders are like maybe only like 4 or 5 years older than the youth themselves, and that is a great way to transition that relatability from one to the other and to look at, those things as leadership. And there's things that after school can do that you probably not in all schools you couldn't do during a school day, right? Musically, creatively, language-wise. And I see a lot of after school concepts kind of filtering into like charter school models on the East Coast in a way, where it's more like, you have your pillars, and then you kind of like build these rituals. And I think after school is just always just important for that reason. It's going to keep the balance. It's going to keep educators on their toes about being innovative and responsive to the culture that we deal with on a year-to-year basis.
I completely agree. And I think when they choose to participate in the after school, it's something they choose to do. We have to go to school. It is mandated by the government. You have to go to school for X amount of hours for X amount of years. Mm-hmm. When they choose to do something after school, it's their choice. They feel like they have ownership of that. So they that's their time to just relinquish all baggage of like, I have to meet this expectation because my parent will beat my butt when I get home when they see that B. But when I go here, I'm with my friends and we're hanging, we're chilling, we're doing different things. And I think that's a big thing is like they get ownership of that, where they don't have ownership earlier in the day for a majority of their day for the majority of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to transition into young adulthood and adulthood when we were never in control of our lives until college. And that's the first times we gained control. Because over the summer, what you gonna do? Whatever your parents tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the first time we get the control is after school if you have that around you. But if you don't, you have to wait till you're the freshman year in college, and you're just like, I get to choose this. I'm gonna choose not to go to class because I'm done with this.
Right. It's like you work your whole life just to have choice now. Work your whole life just for choice. It's like you was born into a structure, and now finally the final destination is to be somewhere where you have choice. So absolutely, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I want to touch on something. This is something that we talk about pretty often here. That we actually also talked about last week, I believe, on our last episode, which is ageism, and this idea that like a certain you have to hit a certain like honestly age requirement to be taken seriously in a lot of spaces. And you touched on something that I really love, that you would purposely bring in coaches and mentors who are not even that far removed from being in those programs themselves to be there with those kids. And I think that's so beautiful, and it makes the most sense, right? Like for me, when I was a student in undergrad, I know it was super cool to be able to talk to like upperclassmen undergrads who are still there, or people who had just graduated, people who are very close to where I was just starting. Because first of all, it makes the most sense, right? They just went through this, so they know about what the program is going to like require and what it's going to require of us, being because they were just doing that, right? Versus someone who is 50, 30, 40 years removed from that situation, and you're like, you have no idea what's going on in these classrooms now, right? And so I just wanted to talk on that a little bit more, and also ask you if you've also seen some of those things, that like the effects of ageism within like certain aspects of your industry, and how you have combated that.
So kinda. I don't want to say like a hard yes, but I would say that I'll give you an example. So I had an after school program that I started in Brooklyn at one of the charter schools in Bed-Stuy. And we would start by hiring like college sophomores to work the program. But what was hard is like, college sophomores have kind of an intense schedule. It's hard to get them on a Monday through Friday. So thinking of ways to innovate, I decided, all right, we're going to hire high school seniors, right? 17 to 18, totally fine. Let's get y'all in here. Let's get y'all acclimated. Let's get you understanding what the workforce is like and being in an after school environment. And I do know like it was tough maybe the first few months on the and I called them rising group leaders, right? So like you're on the way, and what I would do is assign them with a mentor that was a couple years older than them, and this way we could kind of like, the closer we could get, right, and it transition them. But I'm not gonna hold you up. Like there was in the first couple months, they were just like, oh, you got these youngins in here and they don't understand how to, they don't understand how to carry themselves when they walk into the building and so on and so forth. And so that became a little bit of a thing. And even my director, like she would, call me and give me reports about certain things. And I'm like, I respect that and I understand that. But what I do want you to understand is like, this is the work. The work is, how do we take these young people and develop them, right? So are we so quick now to just block them out or to push them away because now they're not, you're expecting them to be a full-blown adults? Do they have rent? Do they pay? You know what I'm saying? Like, how exactly do you expect this to happen? This is a process. And I think that in teaching, coaching, development, education as a whole, what I see is a lot of us, and I've been there before, we can sometimes get caught up into what we traditionally are used to and kind of have this I expect everyone to come in that model. It is a very hard thing to step back and to say, what can I do to help this situation? Hip hop, in a sense, as well. How do I be authentic? I get this from a lot of teachers. How do I be authentic? And I want to show respect to the culture. And so yeah, I get that. That's cool. What have you studied? Have you researched it? Have you listened to it? Have you diversified yourself? All I hear is cursing and defiling women. What are you listening for is the real question. Is that what you're listening for? Because you can't tell me that there's not a song in hip hop or in any other genre that has these same concepts and feelings. And what are feelings, right? We all identify, we all own them. We all are in our bucket, in our place, right? So like, what it's what your ears are drawn to and why. So sometimes you have to be able to step back, and that is the hard work. And I'll say something about this podcast that has made me want to step back and do more research and learn. I forget the name of the guest you had, but the guest was talking about the trans artists. That in hip hop, there was some trans artists.
Dr. Care.
That was a great, and it made me say, I need to research this. And my thing is now, I've shifted my way of thinking, and I hope that's what I really hope to do as an educator, is help people learn how to say, instead of, I don't know that, so I don't want to touch that, to say, oh, that's dope. Let me do the research, or, oh, let me write the name of that artist down. Because I can plug that artist in YouTube and learn something in like under 10 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the big deal. And I know I kind of went off on a tangent after we talked about Ageism. I'm hoping to communicate that the concept is just the same. It's like the hard work is really the research, and is really the separation of oneself and own motives from what the actual goal is. Educate, inspire, and elevate. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I think something that you said, I had some people, because I'm the music teacher on campus, they asked me what were my thoughts of the halftime show, the NFL halftime show, which was, hip hop to the max, especially, West Coast hip hop. And I said, it was amazing. I was like, this is what I grew up on. This is the music that I listened to. And one of them were like, well, it's not the music. I don't even know what they were saying. Did you take time to listen to what they were saying? Because to me, you didn't. You really didn't. If that's the first thing that you had to say. So I love the fact that you said, how about you step back and first do the research? And I think a lot of people will dismiss something because they're not familiar with it. Both as teachers, we're supposed to be, isn't our biggest job to expose students to different ways? But if we can't even expose ourselves to something new, how do we expect our students to? So I love that you said that, and doing that research for that.
I got to Western, and she's a huge hip hop scholar, and that's what she's done most of her work in. And I never even thought of taking a class about hip hop or about anything like it. And she's out here writing a book. She exposed us to another person, Dr. Regina Bradley, who's at Kennesaw State, who's like the foremost outcast scholar right now. Like, she's out here writing forewords and books, and it's like Dr. Care's releasing her book this year, or this year. Yeah, it's the queer lenses of hip hop or something like that. It's great, and she's trying to make it open access so anybody can access it. And so like she truly opened my eyes when I got here. Like, oh, I don't have to study Wagner, Vivaldi, and Mahler anymore. I can study like Outkast, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. I can do that and still be respected. Like, it's
Right.
like some of these people are like, if you don't know all of Mozart's symphonies, I don't want to talk to you. Well, I don't want to talk to you if you don't know the current lingo or the current
Right.
like thing that's happening with your students in your future ensembles. So yeah,
Mm.
I like the way you said that. I'm here for it.
100%.
And so when you go and you teach either teachers or students the hip hop pedagogy, how do you go about that, especially for some of our listeners who are teachers that want to kind of, put hip hop in their class or really just kind of bring the current culture to their class? How do you really go about talking about that?
Mm-hmm. So, what I found is like a lot of the things that I've been teaching, even on higher ed level, is totally scalable to even the elementary school and the elementary teacher, because concepts are, to me, I don't know, I don't see them as so far out of reach depending on age. It's just about how you can access it, and where you kind of meet these people where they are, and up and downgrade them. But one of the things that I do first in all my music classes is I start with a music maker community agreement. So what that basically is saying, like, all right, well, while we're in this space, let's understand, and let's collaborate. I struggle with some words. This is one of them. Collaboratively. I feel like Method Man, when he was in Belly, he was tripping over his words. But so I like to collaborate, and we design an agreement that says, all right, as a part of this music making community, these are the things that we're going to do to make sure that we feel safe in this space, that we're respectful in this space, that we're responsible in this space as well. And these are the ways we're going to have fun. So what I do is I bring in like all my students who circle up, and I'm telling you, I even do this in my current classes, in my hip hop coaches class over at USF. And I say, all right, what are ways we're going to be safe? And I let them just give me some words like musically, how do we be safe? Make sure we're not offending everyone. All music is good music to somebody, so we're going to be respectful. Don't yuck my yum, and so on and so forth. So I try to set the standard by first making sure that everybody is incorporated into the process of an agreement. It's not just coming from me to you. It's centered around you and what you feel the space should be. Now, me as a coach, I'm always going to guide it and give you language that can help you see that from a more broad sense. And then from there, what I like to do is I'm a big, like, I touch on hip hop history, but I like to also access other genres of music through the sampling process. So I do introduce loops and sounds in all of my classes, kind of like a foundation of like, let's listen to Juice WRLD. Let's listen to his Juice WRLD's last song, rest in peace, Juice WRLD. He sampled Sting. That's not the shape of my heart, right? So he sampled that, and now let's transition it. And now also let's use not only the loops and the sounds, but let's also look at composition and writing concepts, right? So like in hip hop and rap, there's a concept that we call the scheming, which is basically like word association, right? The apple of my eye is the pear of my heart, whatever you want to say, like you're using this string along by using a common denominator, right? And I also identify those writing concepts in pop music from our history and translate it and show it. Like if we was to listen to the Shape of My Heart by Sting right now, you would know that his entire chorus is a scheme about a deck of cards, right? Next time you get a chance and jump on it, you'll see that he uses 4 lines, and he's talking about war, and he's talking about the spades being the weapons, and he's saying like they're fighting over diamonds, and he's like, it's not the shape of my heart. So he's using all of the suits of the deck of cards. And right, if you're a music nerd like me, and you listen to writing, I'm like, I thought scheming was like an advanced rap thing, and I'm like listening to Sting, and I'm like, he's going off on this chorus. So I kind of like use those concepts as light bulbs for students to understand that, like, you can, as relevant as what you're listening to today, I could bounce you back and forth. I could bounce you to the 90s. I could bounce you to the 80s and show you a lot of things. I could also nerd out on cadences, on how Vanilla Ice, baby. Remember that? That the cadence that he used was replicated by Fabulous in his song in 2003, Holla Back Youngin'.
Oh.
Rolling. Block out. Right? It's the same thing as Vanilla Ice. So I love to use these small pockets of concepts to relate it. So when people, or when my students understand it from that connection, it's easier for them to digest. Now, when I'm dealing with maybe even older teachers, like our 50 plus teachers who are like, I don't even get this. What I'll do is I'll translate cadences in standard notation, because rap is actually, it's percussive articulation, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you're not sure that hip hop is music? Okay, now listen to this cadence, right? Now I want you to take your palms and use them as snare drums and try to replicate that cadence while they're rapping. It's a little too complex for you to follow, right? Yes. And that's I'm talking about from the hip hop to hippie. I had from that, and they couldn't even go hip hop, you hippie. So I want you to understand that these are very powerful musical concepts. But what you're listening for is the reason why you don't get it. My job as an educator is to do the research and to make it digest, so that now I could pivot the way you think and how you listen. So now there's a respect there.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, I felt like I was back in form and analysis, but a way cooler version of form and analysis. So like basically, like we took I don't know, Anthony, if you were in that class with me and Michael, but it was like over the summer we took it with shout out Dr. Wadsworth, we love you still. But like the class, sometimes I found my brain going like I just was like stuck, because I was like, what in the world is going? But it was the same concept of like figuring out what the cadence is and all this, and like figuring out like what is this mode, or what is this the form of this piece, and da 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 da. And the biggest thing that you just said, which was exactly what I think a lot of people are trying to push for now, is that they're not that different when you look at them that way. If you look at them if you're going into it looking for similarities between a Mozart symphony and like a Dr. Dre song, like that's the difference, because usually it's like, oh, these are two completely just different ideas. They don't have any of the same like formats or concepts that they use when creating the music. Yes, they do. Right. But the thing that you said is like looking for that is what is the difference. If you're looking for only one thing that you think that you know rap or hip hop as, then you're not going to find those similarities.
Exactly. And my job is to draw it out, is to like make it so apparent that you can't deny it.
Exactly.
That's true. I mean, and Lauren, excuse me, Mozart was a prodigy, so you're gonna get attacked on this podcast now, because he was a prodigy. How dare you compare him to Dr. Dre, as some people would say? That I'm so mad. But no, one thing we talked about this, like we went and presented at GMEA, like our the mini podcast live kind of thing, and we are reading these presentations that are happening. There's some on hip hop. There's some on teaching. What was the one Anthony called?
Teaching Black students from a white woman's perspective, something like that.
There's some of these real things. But the funny thing is, these people have they don't have not what it takes to present on this, but not the authentic. Like we saw, I think Anthony saw it at FMEA, and we may have saw one at GMEA about hip hop. And it's not people like you who have broken this down and can relate. Like, you just related stuff to Sting. Yeah. And I'm over here like, bro, Sting sung madrigals at one point. This man, no, like, but like they're not like you. They're not breaking it down like that. Where you can literally teach a elementary music teacher, hey, you can teach this to the youth of the youth, and hey, you college professor, you can apply this, and that's why like people like you and other scholars and other professors like in your field should be here at these tables, but people are taking it away from people because they feel like they have the right, and they're going to continue to mislead and miseducate people throughout the next generation, but they won't make connections like you just did that made all three of us go, holy shit. Like, what?
Yes.
Like, and I just had to go on that tangent.
But also, like, one thing, so also at GMEA, and for anybody listening, if you want to take a listen to our GMEA presentation, we had one of our panelists, Wilson Gustama, he actually brung up, like, all right, you want to teach a lesson on triplets? Well, take this rap song where there's triplets going on. They're rapping in triplets. Look, there's that rhythm that, you know, your students are having a hard time doing, but I'm pretty sure they're listening to this on the radio and they don't even know they're doing it right now. So take that is something, but again, like you said, if somebody wants to listen to that same song and then listen for, oh, this is terrible, and they go in with that mindset, they've lost a teaching tool instead of saying, I wonder what can I get out of this that might relate this back to my students, so it's make it easier. And also another thing that you said, sampling. Let me just say, that's honestly why I fell in love with hip hop probably the most, is because of the samples. That was really the thing. So like, honestly, I think, so Michael Lauren had came down to Orlando, and first of all, I've always loved the song. But it's Kendrick Lamar's Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, okay? I remember when it first came out, and I was like, I really love this song. And I was like, I wonder why I really love this song. And it's the sample, the sample and then it's from Germany, and it's in German. And I'm like, what in the world? I listened to this German song, I have no idea what this lady is saying. However, I am listening to it on repeat because like, it exposes me to different things. Let me see. There's They Reminisce Over You. Is that Pete?
That's Pete Rock and CL.
Yeah, and the sample. First of all, it's been over and over many people, and anytime I hear it, I'm like, yep, that's it. And I remember researching. So that was like my first love with hip hop. Is like, where are they getting these samples and where are they finding this music? But people have to be ready to like learn it that way. Like you never know. And if I hear anybody try to discredit hip hop producers or rap artists, I'm like, y'all don't know what y'all are talking about. First of all, like number one, not only the talent level, but they do a lot of research. For you to find a jazz album from 1976 that if nobody has heard before, use a little part of that and then make it a whole different song, you got to do some hell of a research to find stuff like this. Like you have to. So whenever I hear it, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And now that you're in higher ed, have you kind of been witness to where people might look at like your title and what you were doing as less than, let's say, classical studies? Or have you had to deal with that at any point of your career?
That's a great question. I'd say this is my kind of thought on my title to begin with. I'm glad you said that. So I personally feel like my title is my title because it's a safe way to say, right? To say, oh, professor of hip hop, no, we're not doing that, right? That's what they want my focus. It's very clear. This is what your focus is. But we're going to use commercial and content because this is kind of the comfortable medium. This is how you edge it. Okay, that's cool. I'm like, that's cool because my mission is to educate and elevate. So I could take that on. I could fight that fight another day. Fine. I think that nothing blatant has come out as far as like the stand, but you do have the you do have the subs, you do have the kind of like, yeah, but this is, I suggest you. I'm not sure if you use that would, you have those type of things, right? Where it's just like, and some of it to me just comes from going back to what we were saying about the ageism, I think a little bit too, because when you have kind of, they've been here and they look at the new person, the new energy, the new flavor, the new concept, it gets viewed as a threat in the beginning. It's like, all right, who is this? You know what I'm saying? That this person gonna come in and take my jazz ensemble away? Who is this guy? Right? Yeah. But this is, to me, it's all cerebral too, and it'll never come out on the surface. Nobody's gonna like approach it like that. So I see it, and I witness it, email here, email there, conversation here, conversation there. And what has made me successful and continue to make me successful is just the way that I navigate things. I play chess a little bit as far as this is concerned, and I don't get too caught up into it and understand when I have to bring the fight, when it's necessary and when it's not, and taking these wins. So in short, I would say, in a little something, but I don't think that I have, I think that as this position expands, once the undergrad program actually launches next year, and if it gets some attention, that's when the smoke is going to come, and that's what I'm always going to be ready for. So for the time being, it's about being this new guy and understanding that that's just kind of the way things are when you first come into a space with this new energy like this.
So I have a question. You answered it kind of already, because I was going to ask it, like, reading your bio really quick. It's like, it says you're designing, building, and promotion of recruitment students for the contemporary commercial music. I will add real quick, when I read director of contemporary commercial music, I was like, oh, they think they clever with words. I will say that when I read it real quick. But so the undergraduate program is going to launch hopefully next year, you said? In that, when you have students, do they have a, let's say, Western classical requirement within your degree? Like, if they don't? Okay, that's cool. I like that, because usually if you see this kind of degree, like the minute I saw that, I was like, okay, they're probably going to be in classical lessons for at least 2 years, and then they can start getting into their degree. But with your program, they're getting into their degree right away. Do they have and they do have the opportunity, if they want to participate in some of the Western classical art?
Yeah, like I believe it's about like about 12 credits of electives they could take, 12 to 15.
Okay, perfect. That's really cool. That's gonna be a cool program. I can't wait till I launch, and I want to look at like all the classes they take. I might go get me another undergrad. We'll see.
Right. Another degree. I mean, like, there's not a lot of programs like this. I mean, when I think there's one at Belmont, because they're usually, but I think there's lean towards like
commercial,
like truly commercial, like country music or something. Maybe Berkeley has something like this.
Yeah, Berkeley has a little something.
Yeah, but this right here, and like, you're in the South, like you're in Tampa. I mean, we are originally from the Atlanta area. I know there's a lot of artists who went through classical music education, but we knew they wanted to do something not dealing with classical music. I will never forget, there was a vocalist that went to school with me, and she really wanted to do, R&B and learn that. But of course, you have to sing this aria from this opera. And it's like, I don't really want to. So I'm glad that this is coming, this is something new. And I will have to say, even though they try to give it digestible titles, we can read through digestible titles.
Exactly.
And we can see what's going on. So I'm so glad that you were there and you were doing the work there. I can't wait to hear everything. I also before we leave, I just want to give some time for you to kind of give a little explanation of Project Gametime, your LLC, and really just shout it out because I think it's like such a great thing that you were doing.
I appreciate it. So Project Gametime, LLC, at Project Gametime, one word, on all social media. We're an organization that we just want to build safe places for people. And we do that through the platform of after school programs, through the platform of training people who work with young people, and also using relevant pop culture as a platform to educate young people. Our three key words are engage, build, and empower, right? So the first step is always to engage the people, and that's where the pop comes in a lot. And then we want to build the people, right? Where your skills meet you where you're at, get you to be a better human being in the space that you're in. And then empower you to be able to replicate it, because true sustainability of safety, of community, is to be able to step back from a situation, and the people that were coaching, that you were coaching under you, around you, or growing up around you, they can now coach others. We are operating currently in Brooklyn, Manhattan, or both in New York. Do we have any Maryland programs? No Maryland programs. We are in Pennsylvania as well. So the way our program works is we have both after school programs, and then we also do training. So the after school programs, typical 3 to 6 with young people. The training programs, we train teachers and staff that are in the schools, and we teach them about what we call restorative culture. Right. So like, how do we build and restore positive relationships in schools? How do I teach a teacher to not just teach, but how do I coach them on how to just build a safe space? We are trying to build programs down here in Florida right now as well. Now that I'm down here, it's time. We got to run it. So see what happens.
I think as a Florida who's been teaching here for a couple of years now, I think that would be a fantastic program. I know that I will be speaking about it to any Florida principal or whoever that listens to me. I'm gonna be like, y'all need to get this. It's crucial now. It has absolutely been a pleasure having you on this episode. The amount of knowledge that you have given us and given our audience, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to the audience, thank you for listening. And we'll have more episodes coming. Have a good day, y'all. Bye.
Yeah.